If you're thinking about canceling your HubSpot account, hold up, watch this video first because I might save you a whole lot of trouble and headache and money. So I'm Sarah Kapler, founder and CEO of Centric. We're a CRM consultancy and email marketing agency, and we've supported hundreds of clients managing their CRM accounts, including HubSpot. We're partners with them. And before I get started here, I see this all the time. HubSpot can get expensive real fast. The high-level way their business works is a really strong free tool, the free CRM, that kind of sucks you in, gets you to build out your whole business and use it as a central database for everything. Then they have a starter plan. It's about $50 a month, a little bit more if you need more seats, if you have more contacts, but roughly in that range, $50 to $100 a month, which is pretty good. You get a lot of features for it. You can do a lot of the basics on the starter plan, either service, sales, or marketing. There's kind of three main parts to their plans. And then the next step up to professional on HubSpot plans is really steep. It's, $200, $600, $1,000, $2,000 a month to get to that next level. And that's where that's the step that I want to talk to you about today, because that's the step where the price goes up super steep. And if you're not kind of prepared to make use of all those features, the ROI can take a sharp nosedive between starter and professional. So I have a lot of clients who come to me and they say, oh my gosh, Sarah, I just got my HubSpot bill for the year. It is exorbitant. I want to cancel. I'm so fed up with this. I can't believe we're paying this much. We're not using all the features. Let's just cancel the whole thing. I'm done with HubSpot. I know friends who, business acquaintances, other people who've told me about other tools out there on the market that we should really only be paying, $50 a month for everything. If this is you and you're holding a great big HubSpot invoice and kind of panicking about it, pause, take a deep breath. We're going to walk through this together. And I just want to share with you from our experience and from the cases we've seen, like what the options are that are in front of you. And there's more options than just cancel or stay at this invoice level. Okay, there's a variety of other options. So the first thing I want to say is canceling HubSpot on a whim is risky. Canceling anything in panic mode, making any big software business decision on a whim, because you're panicking about the cost of it is just not a good idea. My rule of thumb, I run a business, is to sleep on it, assess it, give it a little bit of time to solidify, and try not to be so reactive when these things come up, because it's not going to serve you in the long run. So don't cancel on a whim. What I will say is it's a good sign and signal if you're panicking or worried about the size of the bill to take a minute and assess the situation a little bit. And consider the options, right? Like I said, you have more options than pay the invoice forever at this rate or cancel. There's more to the story. First thing I want to say about why canceling is so risky. Of course, the invoice stops, but the software also goes away and you won't have access to all the data. Migrating to a different platform, that's a big job. That's a big project. Most businesses we work with, it's between 1 and 6 months just to migrate and set all your workflows and your data and the custom fields and all the roles and all the settings to get everything properly configured on a new system. You need some lead time for that. It can take time, and not everything can migrate over. So we have clients sometimes who say, oh, we just want to move over to MailChimp for email. And you go, okay, well, MailChimp can send email for sure. But what else your HubSpot is doing? It's managing all your contact data. It's managing all these custom fields that were important to you at some point in the business. And MailChimp is not going to have that. So it's not just a question of of finding one or two features over in another tool that costs less. It's also a question of, what are you going to do when the data doesn't migrate well? Are you going to really have two separate systems, one that you're using for insights, one that you're using for this one functionality? When you get into it, the migration story really does need to be assessed. Almost every business owner that comes to us underestimates the time and complexity of data migration. Retraining the team is another one that really gets overlooked. Oh, look how easy this tool is. It's super straightforward, no problem. And then you make a switch, you go to train the team, and it takes a long time for them to get the hang of the new tool. Maybe all of your SOPs need updating. Maybe there's people who don't get the new tool intuitively and need kind of retraining on certain things that used to be intuitive. So migrating is a chore. It's got data migration issues, retraining the team, and I think the biggest piece that I want to talk about in this video is HubSpot is a wonderful data repository for businesses. The free tool, all the custom fields you can set up, almost limitless number of contact records. You can maintain business information, company information, deal information, tickets. I mean, there's so much data in there. Most people don't realize that. Most people go into HubSpot and they say, well, look, yeah, I see first name, I see last name, I see 2 or 3 things. But behind the scenes, it's like it's iceberg of data. You see, where did they come from? What source? What pages have they viewed? When did they open emails? It's got a lot of depth to it. And so when you're trying to just on a whim, move over to, I'd say, a lighter tool that doesn't have that depth, you lose that. You're going to lose that depth of data. And as someone who loves data, that's what I do all day, every day is swim in customer data. But there really is a lot to be said for keeping that data intact. So what are the alternatives? I want to talk through them with you. So when we're talking about HubSpot invoices and billing and contracts, anything from Pro and above is going to be on an annual cycle. So first things first, if you're even considering changing your HubSpot plan, the first thing to do is to see when is your renewal date and to kind of work backwards from there. HubSpot will not let you make big changes until that renewal date. So you're looking at a big invoice, you get really frustrated. Well, I'm sorry, but your next renewal is in 1 year. So you're not going to be able to get out of this contract unless, I don't know. I actually haven't even heard of cases where people are able to get out of contracts. But let's say it's really extreme cases like dissolving the business or declaring bankruptcy, or I don't know, maybe one of those cases will let you out of a HubSpot contract, but pretty much it's watertight. And so there's not anything you're going to be able to do except use this time to plan your next move and assess, what the next move should be. So yearly contracts, however, there is a caveat to this. You're going to be paying some kind of a fee for the plan you're on. So professional sales, professional marketing, professional, the tiers of the different components of HubSpot. But there's also going to be some variable ones. There's going to be your seats, how many administrative seats you have, or paid seats, or how many of the admins are going to have access to the pro features is really what that means. So there's a seat component to it, and then there's how many marketing contacts you have component to your invoices usually. And those are 2 things that you might have some wiggle room or control about. So first thing you can do is reduce the number of seats, meaning if you have a plan, sometimes what happens is a client will sign a professional plan and they will have 3 core seats included. And over time, they don't realize that they're adding in new people and they don't realize what they're selecting in the settings when they're setting up these new accounts. They're adding in new people and they go over that 3 and maybe they'll add in 1 more and then another person comes 1 more. And by the time we come in, we go, well, you've got 6 seats, but you have some wiggle room to go back to 3. So do you really need those 6 seats? And could we go back to the 3? That's sometimes areas where, depending on how you set up your plan in the first place and where you are now, you might be able to reduce that cost, which can translate to, in some cases, dozens of core seats. They kind of didn't realize they were adding charges to their monthly billing as they're adding team member access. So checking and auditing the number of of seats you have and asking yourself who really needs it, who really needs access, not to HubSpot, but to the pro features is one place you can explore to reduce the bills. The other thing is your marketing contacts. So as you know, and we have another video on this topic specifically where we walk through this in a bit more depth with a screen share and kind of how to navigate it. Marketing contacts is a big topic for HubSpot. It's not how many contacts are in your HubSpot, it's how many contacts you have decided that you want to pay to be able to market to. So it's a setting that you can change, manage, and decide based on your marketing strategy and plan, decide how many marketing contacts you really need to have. So one place to look for savings is to audit your marketing contacts. Do you really need to be paying for 10,000 marketing contacts if your monthly newsletters are going out to 3,000 people? Probably not. There's probably some wiggle room there. That can be a little tedious to go through. Like nobody has time to go through their CRM and check every single person and whether or not they should be marketing contacts. But there are some tricks. There's some tricks to shortcuts you can take to kind of batch do this. So for example, if somebody has an email that's bounced, you don't want to be paying for their marketing contact status. Of course, you could say maybe soft bounces, maybe they're out of office, maybe their mailbox is full, fine. But there's some categories of bounces, like hard bounces, that, game over. You're going to mark them as non-marketing contacts and save on the costs. The second thing is really unengaged people. A lot of people have been building in HubSpot, growing their HubSpot for a number of years, and it's going to be full of contacts that have not shown any sign of life or engagement in, 7 years. Yeah, you shouldn't be paying for those because they're not the ones that are going to be getting your emails. So there's ways to reduce the number of marketing contacts that can start to get that bill down. And then the last thing, which we have an entire video on how to do this concretely, but it's just to downgrade from professional back to starter. We've helped many businesses do this to save on costs. It absolutely can move the needle for your budget in a meaningful way. We had one client recently, we helped them downgrade from marketing professional to marketing starter, but they kept their sales professional because that was worth it to them. And they saved $14,000, $15,000 on their yearly license by making this shift. And when you're looking at downgrading to a different plan, there's not a whole lot of resources from HubSpot about how to do that, hence why I'm making this video. And for obvious reasons, of course, they don't want you to downgrade, so you need to you need to kind of take that initiative on your own. But our recommendation there is to keep your CRM data, keep the essential parts that you're using, and try to pare down some of the, let's say, runaway automations that were created on it that maybe aren't being used anymore, and just simplify the system. So it's absolutely possible to just fold it back up to the lower tier and rein in those costs without having to do a big migration project or retrain your staff, and et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes, when we're downgrading systems, I like to tell clients, downgrading is strategic, right? It's not a loss. It's not a failure. It can absolutely be a smart business move. And I always tell the clients we work with, congratulations. Now you understand your business needs at a really granular level and can say with confidence what it is you need and what it is that doesn't fit anymore or doesn't work anymore. Nobody goes through one of these downgrading projects without coming out more inspired, more in tune with their team and their business and their workflows, more in tune with their, customer data and segments and things that really matter. So it's a good exercise anyway, aside from the cost savings. It's a good business exercise to go through, and it forces you to kind of clean up ship and make sure things are as efficient as they can be. And it's really good for morale too. Teams like working in tools that make sense. It's frustrating to be working in a tool that's full of what we call tumbleweeds. flying through the screen on these workflows that haven't been updated in 3 years, and nobody knows who created it or why are these links coming. Who hasn't changed out this link? 2 years I've been asking why customers are still accessing this link. Oh yeah, it's because it's in a workflow that hasn't been touched in 3 years. And so what I'm saying is that it's a net positive to go through the exercise, even if at the time it might feel a little bit daunting. Final takeaways: you're sitting on your giant HubSpot invoice, you're panicking. Don't panic, you have options. Number one, take a look at your seats and your marketing contacts. If there's any wiggle room, if there's anything you're not using that you can pare down a little bit to save on your costs. Sometimes you're able to make some changes with immediate effect, depending on how your contract is set up initially. Otherwise, put your renewal date in the calendar. See if you can work towards downgrading by that renewal date. But you don't need to throw in the towel. HubSpot really is a tremendous repository of data, especially if you've been using it for a few years, and really take the time to weigh the pros and cons of a migration before making an impulse decision of throwing it all away and starting fresh somewhere else. That rarely is a good idea, because you'll lose data, you'll lose insight, and the negative effects usually outweigh the positive effects of a fresh start somewhere else. So if you need a hand with any of this, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll post some links to resources that we share with small business owners that are navigating these changes, and we're always happy to help support you. I hope you found this useful, and good luck managing your HubSpot account, and take a deep breath. You got this.